Hi, everybody. It's Carol Morrock at carolmorrock.com. Welcome to Solo and Smart, my YouTube channel. And my guest today is Wendl Kornfeld. And Wendl lives in the New York area. And Wendl had originally, back in the 90s, she read a book by Gail Sheehy called New Passages. Which led her to getting a certificate or going through a course and earning a certificate called The Psychology of Aging, where she quickly discerned that growing old was like being dropped in a foreign country. And boy, can I relate to that. And being dropped into a foreign country, probably not speaking the language, or having a tour guide or even a map to follow. Because there is so much to learn, to know, and also to plan for as we grow older. So realizing the significance of family support in aging further encouraged Wendl to figure out how she and her older husband, who are both childless, would navigate their older years without the benefit of having family nearby. So in early 2014, Wendl ran 5 focus groups of people without adult children. Using the icebreaker, what did or do your aging parents rely upon for you? And do you anticipate having similar needs yourself? If not, why? If so, what's your plan? And these workshops were so successful, she was invited to bring the concept to her synagogue, Temple Emmanuel of New York City. I hope I said that correctly. Where Community as Family has been meeting monthly since December 2014. So welcome, Wendl. Thank you for being with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Carol.
Yeah, and Wendl was one of the original members, as I recall, of the Elder Orphan Facebook group. And
right.
She currently runs a subgroup, kind of an offshoot of the main group, for New York or New York City. So Wendl, I've known you for at least 5 years, I think. And I know that you run a community or a group at your synagogue. And do you focus specifically is it for all older adults or those specifically without children?
Well, we pose it and present it as something for older people, planning for even older years without family, and to learn how to be a stronger self-advocate and how to build a community for yourself. And we be getting people in their 50s upward, I would say, some married, some single. And then several people have joined and they have very good relationships with their adult kids, but they're not nearby, or maybe there's something else going on, and they do feel like they're aging solo to some degree. They want to learn some tricks and maybe meet some new friends.
Okay, so when addressing your group, what steps do you give to those participating? What steps do you give them when creating a personal network? I know that you encourage them to volunteer, get involved in cultural and educational programs, but if a person doesn't go to church or another faith organization, which I know many do not, are there ways that for them to go about it in creating a network of friends and social engagement?
Yes, absolutely. I like to believe there's a solution or an answer to just about everything. We just have to know where to find it and how to access it. Certainly, if you belong to a faith-based community, you have lots of opportunities to volunteer and to meet other people. But if you don't want to go that route, volunteering anywhere is a good idea, because not only do you make your community a little stronger, but you're going to meet people who have the same interests and values you do. So you could be volunteering in parks and gardens, you could be volunteering with older people or even with children, with animal, with arts. Everybody seems to need volunteers. So if you pick your interest, you're going to find you're volunteering with people who already share something with you, which is great. You have something in common. You, as you said, you could take classes and seminars. You could join meetup groups. Meetup is a online community, and they have thousands of groups of every interest you can imagine. You could try that. You could go to nextdoor.com, another online community, which is targeted right to your neighborhood, and you'll meet people there. By the way, everything that I'm going to mention, I have done or I am doing, and I have met great friends and developed wonderful relationships. So I'm not going to recommend anything that I haven't done and hasn't worked out well, obviously. What else? I'm just going to check my note a second. You could join a national women's organization, such as the Transition Network. You could go to a site called Get Set Up. They have lots of social and online learning groups for free. I've met wonderful people there. You could also expand your net of people that you're going to meet by going to Senior Planet, which is a tech-based organization for older people. And they have wonderful classes and opportunities to meet each other. So those are just a few. And of course, there's always Facebook and LinkedIn.
Right. You know, and I think sometimes we miss the thing that's closest to us. We have our blinders on and we forget about our neighbors. And even the very local community that we participate in, like the grocery store, you know, even because quite frankly, I have met some good friends at the grocery store.
Sure.
And even clerks, and having conversations with them, because many times social networks, it doesn't really mean you have to see someone every day, but it just gives you a feeling that you not only connected, but you have some type of you know, feeling that you are connected. Because I mean, seriously, when I would go, I remember back years ago when I would had trouble making friends, only because I just didn't feel connected at all to the place where I was living. So a life coach had instructed me to start talking to people in grocery stores and in any business that I would do, you know, that I would do business with. And it really helped me expand my feeling that I could or have the ability to connect with people. So, you know, if we're shy, if we have trouble making connections, I always like to encourage people just to start there. Because once you start making eye contact with people and just having a conversation with them, it really gives you the confidence to start doing other things like the ones you're suggesting, like joining Meetup, even trying out new applications like Nextdoor and Facebook and what have you. So
yes, you made a very good point, especially about if you are a little introverted or a little shy. Certainly, in order to widen that net of acquaintances, you're going to have to step outside your comfort zone a bit. And also, as you say, Carol, every time you make a little victory or you feel like you've accomplished something, it gives you that charge to do it again and to do it more often. Certainly, even casual relationships, saying hello to the mail carrier, talking to people on the elevator if you live in a big building, talking to people, just reach out. You'll find most people are happy to respond. And little steps always lead to the bigger steps. And the more often you see people, the more you'll get to know them, they'll get to know you. And that's how a relationship starts. I want to caveat all of the things that I mentioned before are great ways to meet people, but building a relationship, a friendship, a trusting relationship, it takes time. Don't expect miracles too fast, but keep at it.
Which brings me to the next question. How does one build a deep sense of trust, especially even with your neighbors or in a group like Meetup, for example? How does one learn to trust themselves and that they are making the right decisions to further that relationship?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it'd be nice if everybody came with a little seal of approval that they've passed all sorts of tests for being a trustworthy friend. But it's not like that. It's not that easy. You do have to work at it. And again, repeated exposures to somebody under different circumstances gives you an idea of kind of the person they are. And certainly I would say you want to be closer to people who have demonstrated common sense, that have a sense of responsibility. Certainly they're discreet, they don't badmouth other people, they don't gossip, not too much, I'll put it that way. You want to be able to think, I could confide in this person, I could trust them with something. So you want to get an idea of their ethics, their character. And repeated exposure to that under different circumstances, you'll kind of see how someone's put together. And if at a certain point you say, this person, I feel safe with them, and best of all, they get me, and they seem to care about me, and I care about them. These relationships have to be mutually rewarding. It can't be all about what can this person do for me. If you're going to have a community, it means it works both ways.
That's right. And another point that I'd like to add to that, when I first moved into my building, I was really excited that I'm living among older individuals. It's not a 55 plus community. However, there are a lot of older people. And I was really excited because I knew that at least I had the potential to make connections and to build some type of networking and a support system. However, it took 2 years for people to warm up to me and for me to really warm up with others. So just have patience. It's not going to, like Wendell said, it's not going to happen overnight. Unfortunately, it takes time. But that's good though, because if it takes time, that just means you're learning about each other, and kind of checking each other out.
Exactly. You wouldn't, well, sometimes we rush into romance, but it's always good when it comes to being with another person and developing a mutually trusting and supportive and caring relationship. Yeah, you need to give it some time.
Yeah. And so what recommendations or tools can you give individuals to assess one's upcoming changes, as we, grow older? And believe me, I'm going through this myself. I'm feeling a lot of changes. So how does one start to evaluate those changes and troubleshoot situations just so that, we can better prepare for them?
Sure. And it's always better to start earlier. You don't want to wait until you're in crisis mode. That's why I wish I could get more people interested, people who are in their 50s. I think it's good not to scare them, but just to say, God willing, you're going to have a really good long life, but don't expect things to stay the same. Here are some things that you might want to think about that you can do to invest in your future self right now. One thing you can do is you can observe other people who are older, see what works. Whose life seems to work well? Who seems to have a lot of problems? You can learn from good role models as well as the less good ones, but be very observant about what it's like to be older and look at it, with a detached, compassionate look at it as opposed to fear. Don't fear about getting older. It is a gift. You should assess your own health situation right now and determine, do you have anything in your family history that is likely to pop up or to get worse? Do you have mobility problems, or is it likely that your arthritis is going to get worse? Think about what is likely to change. Talk to your doctor about that. Let your doctor help you envision where you might want to spend extra time, either trying to correct something or to mitigate the effects of that condition. Certainly assess your finances. When I mentor younger people, I always say, I'll give you one piece of advice when it comes to money. It's a lot easier to do without luxuries when you're young than without necessities when you're old. And certainly you want to make sure that you have enough money so that you will be able to pay your bills and get the best care and living conditions, et cetera, that you can afford. And you also want to make sure that your documents are in place, like the healthcare proxy, which is a legal document that assigns someone else to make health decisions for you in the event you cannot speak for yourself. So it's very important that you have that healthcare proxy. That often goes hand in hand with a living will about things you would or wouldn't want to be done for you, health-wise, in a medical setting. You also want to think about getting your financial power of attorney in place. What if for whatever reason, temporarily or even long range, you couldn't deal with your finances, your investments, and things like that? You need a trusted person who can act as your proxy. Rather your power of attorney. So, and certainly you need a will. Get your will, because if you care about what happens to your stuff and all the things you worked hard for, you want to make sure that that document is in place too. So paperwork, yeah, get that paperwork done early and then go out and have a really great life. You need an emergency plan in place in case you have to go into the hospital or rehab. I've created a document of the things that you should think about, just to have on hand, things you should do, things you should anticipate in case you need to be away from home for some time, because things can get out of control if you're not home for a while unexpectedly. And then I would say also look around your home to make sure that it's fitted well for somebody whose eyesight maybe is not as good as it was, or your footing isn't as good. Make sure your carpets aren't loose. Make sure you got some night lights around that come on automatically when it's dark in the room. Grab bars in the shower. Again, this is smart for everybody, but it becomes essential once you get older. So get that stuff now, get it over with. And I'll give you one or two others. How about a phone or a fax tree check-in system? You might want to think about that. If you live alone, you might do what three of my friends have done. They've been doing this for years. They're all in their 80s, but they started earlier. They all live alone. And at 10 o'clock every day, they text each other and say, I'm fine, I'm okay. I went to the movies last night, whatever. They do a little schmooze, on the text, but they all check in. I have friends that check in at night, especially since COVID. They check in with each other 9 o'clock at night. So there's no right way or wrong way, but have a plan like that. And if you do, have a contingency, like if someone can't reach you or they don't hear from you by a certain time, what's the plan? Do you call their doorman if they live in an apartment? Do they call a relative? Do they call a different friend? But have a contingency plan so there's a follow-up in case, unfortunately, there is a problem.
Yes, those are great tips. Thanks, Wendell. And let's end our conversation with, you had talked to me recently about building community as a family, and you say that it has three basic structures. Did you want to end our conversation today with those three basic?
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to. I think I have the same notes that we had. Okay, yeah. So the first structure of community as family is to discover ways you can create a trusted network of people who can support you in case you ever need problems. Because as good as we are, as smart as we are, as strong as we are, We are human beings. We need each other. So the first step is create that community family. It can be a combination of your friends, colleagues from work, neighbors, certainly, because they're right there physically, professionals. Engage all those people. Get together a good network of people around you with varied skill sets who are likely to care what happens to you. The second part is anticipating the changes that are coming up in life. And we just discussed what those are, just so you don't find yourself in crisis mode without a plan. That's what I would think is the worst case scenario. And the third is become a really strong self-advocate. Find out where your resources are, whether it's federal, state, local, community-based. There are so many resources out there online. There's tons of them. Find out what the resources are that you need now or that you may need. Start checking them out. Find out how they work, how to access them. And that's all part of being a strong self-advocate, because without a family to help you, you're going to be doing a lot on your own. And hopefully you will have that A-team you created for yourself as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Wendell. These are
My
really
pleasure.
wonderful tips and reminders for each of us to, kind of expand our courage and to start looking for people, like-minded people, who would fulfill some of our own social and support needs. So this is it for today. Thank you for joining us, and please circle back in the next day or two. Remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel and also give this video a thumbs up. Thanks again.